Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Angela Brennan and today I'm bringing you the much delayed April 2025 Spellbinders Clubkits. This is the BetterPress of the month and I'm going to show you how I use the BetterPress of the month to do some hot foiling. These are the three sentiments that comes to the BetterPress of the month. A friendly reminder that someone is thinking of you, wishing you a day as sweet as this letter, and a note just for you. So these three sentiments go so well with the theme, and it comes with coordinating dies as well. So the main background, and it's got a frame, a postage edge frame, and I always use hammer card to do hot foiling, and I'm using the black hot foil to do some hot foiling. So the same principles of the Glimmer plates, hot foil plates. So you've got the dull side of the foil facing the card and the pretty side of the foil facing the pretty side of the BetterPress plate. Now I'm going to use some tape to keep those plates and the foil in place when I put it onto the Spellbinders Glimmer machine. You just need to ensure you stick them all quite securely, make sure the machine is on, and with the hot foil machine here, the Glimmer machine, you'll just see that little light there flicker, and when it stops flickering, you know it takes about a minute, and you know that's ready for the entire platform to be taken and put through the Platinum 6 machine. It's as easy as that. You make sure you use the right hot foil and the right card, and you get amazing results all the time. As you can see here, the impression of the hot foil of using the black hot foil comes out so beautifully. But remember, the Glimmer machine, you use hot foil. You can also use the negative hot foil here to create another image. And I'm using the large rectangle solid hot foil plate or Glimmer plate to create a negative image. And same principles, you got the dull side of the hot foil facing the card and the pretty side of the hot foil facing the solid rectangle Glimmer plate, and there you go. You can see a clear plastic here which indicates all of the hot foil has been transferred to the card, and you get the positive image on the left and the negative image on the right. So you get a 2-for-1 here. And here I've done some hot foiling of the sentiments, all the same hot foil, black hot foil, and I'll use the coordinating dies to die cut the sentiments. And I always die cut an extra couple of layers because I like to layer the sentiments, and all I do is to create a bit of dimension. And here are all the hot foils I've done. You've got polished brass and the black hot foil, and what I'm doing here is I'm layering all the die cuts of each of the sentiments so that when I put it onto the card front, there's a bit of a dimension. I like doing that. And I've got one of the sentiments also, I've got the negative hot foil. I'm using the precision layering die set, A2 die set, to die cut all of the images that I've hot foiled here, and I'm doing some additional die cutting here because I want to have some variation in the dimension when I assemble the cards. You'll see what I mean. So here I'm die cutting a smaller image or rectangle so that the postage edge is separate and I can give a bit more dimension to the middle section. Before that, I'm using the December 2024 stencil of the month, all the hearts here, and I'm going to do some stenciling. I just wanted to get a light pink in the periphery or of the border, so you can see the hearts fade off as it gets into the inner center. So there's a border there. I just kept it really simple because I wanted the hearts to come through, and I think it'll go really well with the sentiment, a friendly reminder that someone is thinking of you. I just wanted to put the little hearts there and not let it take up too much space. And the border here, I'm going to just simply put double-sided tape and put it on the front of an A2 card. This is an A2 card which measures 4¼ inches by 5½ inches, and then I remove all of the double-sided tape one by one from each of the sides, and I've backed the middle portion with some foam sheet, and then I was using double-sided tape just to put it into the middle, and there you go, some dimension. You can see the tulips and foliage on the left there, the die cut, and this comes from the small die of the month. You'll see the small die of the month, the details and then of putting that together is shown in a previous video, and you can check that out in the description below. I'll put the link, as well as if you just go another video of my Spellbinders April Club Kits, you'll see how I put together the small and large die of the month for that Club Kits. So here I'm just adding some liquid glue and placing those tulips with the foliage onto the side of this card, and I'm going to put the sentiment. Pretty easy to do. I hope you enjoy seeing me put these cards together, because I do like to keep it quite simple. I don't want it to be too fussy or too busy because the background is already there. I'm just thinking which sentiment to put, and I end up putting a friendly reminder that someone's thinking of you. And here you see I'm just putting my dimensional tape or foam strips just at the right side, because you've got the left side, it's going to overlap on that foliage and there's already depth there. And that's the card completed. Really simple to put together, and I just love these colors, some pinks with black and white. Now for my next card here, I'm going to show you how I put together the negative image. So again, it's got quite a solid background, a lot of black there. I'm just adhering it to the A2 card. This time, rather than use foam sheets, I've put a couple of layers of scrap card behind it to give it a little bit of dimension. And you can see that envelope die cut there is from the small die of the month, and I'm going to add the sentiment, wishing you a day as sweet as this letter, and I thought that would go better with the envelope die cut. Very easy to put together. Now I could have put the background of the card black, and maybe I should have, because then the way I've die cut that postage edge hot foil won't come out so starkly, and I did intend to do it, but I ended up not doing it, but I still think it looks pretty. And the 3 dots there, I'm just putting some gems there and using my media picker tool to keep them in place or to adhere them easily. And there you go, this card is nice and clean, I think, because you don't need to make too much out of it because of the quite strong colored background. And this is the polished brass here. I'm going to be die cutting the entire image here with my precision layering die set as well. I like using this because it gives me really good, nice, clean cuts to put it onto an A2 card. So I'm just going to do some ink blending here because the ink will resist all the areas where the foil is. So this is like a foil resist technique, and I'm just putting very lightly in the middle because I'm just going to put a little bit of a dark color at the edges, and then I decided to use a stronger color, a couple of reds, and I'm going to use that little die cut of a bunch of tiny tulips. This is from the large die of the month. I've already got that ready, and I'm just going to add a little bit of dimension with foam sheet, and I've got the sentiment there. And this sentiment is a note just for you, and it's a negative image of the sentiment that it was hot foil with polished brass. Really easy to put together, as I said, because the images are also pretty, and it's quite a interesting background, not too busy, but enough for you to do some ink blending and just put a die cut of that flower. I wanted to put more, but I thought one will do. And then I've got the sentiment that I'm going to make sure it's nice and straight with the aid of a T ruler. While these club kits are not in the current month because they are from April, you can still shop for them on the Spellbinders websites, where you can go under past kits. I've got links to these kits in the description below, but they'll only last as long as there is stock because they don't produce more stock for those monthly club kits. So do go and check it out. Here I'm putting some additional die cuts, again using the small die of the month, and this time I'm putting the mailbox. So if you want to see details of the full complement of die cuts that goes with the composition for the small die of the month, do check out the link into the other April 2025 Spellbinders Club Kits videos that I've done, which is in the link in the description below. You can check that out. So I'm just putting a little bit of a slit in the mailbox there to slit the little letter in there while I compile this mailbox. You can see me put this mailbox in detail together in the other video. So this one's got the negative background with that polished brass foil that I'm putting together. All of Spellbinders Club Kits can be ordered or subscribed. You can subscribe to it between the dates of 6th and 27th of each month. Now, if you subscribe to the Spellbinders Club Kits, you will get them. You'll get priority delivery. That means you'll definitely get them delivered to you every month, come to you straight to your doorstep without being in fear of missing out on any of the club kits. If you get the deluxe caboodle, which covers all 10 club kits, you will also get a bonus item, and you will see me use that bonus in this month, or the April month's bonus item was a coordinating stencil set that goes with the glimmer of the month, and I'll show you how I do the glimmer, which is hot foiling, as well as how I use those stencils. Here I'm just marking out in the sentiment there where I'll overlap on the pole of that post box, or so that I can use my foam strips on the other parts of the sentiment, so I can adhere that without having a little bump on the sentiment. I always like to take that into consideration when I give the sentiment a bit of a lift. Again, using my T-ruler, I make sure it's nice and straight. You don't want to mess up the last minute by putting the sentiment crooked, so having the T-ruler by your craft site and your craft space rather, when you're putting the final touches together, really comes in handy, especially the sentiments. There you go, that card's completed. All I need to do is adhere it onto the front of an A2 card, but this time I decided to give the background a gold so that it kind of matches with the polished brass of that die cut of the post edge expressions die cut there, so it kind of looks kind of seamless. Again, I have put some scrap cards behind the die cut there and adhering it to the front of an A2 card. And that's pretty much done. And I'd like to use double-sided tape, as I've mentioned numerous times, so that it's nice and clean with no additional liquid glue oozing out. Now I'm going to show you the stash tags. Now you've got quite a few sizes here, and you can see all of them in the Spellbinders websites, and I've got them listed in the description below. I'll be showing how I use them in various forms, but here I'm using this one. This is the thinnest of the stash boxes. I'm just putting all of my BetterPress inks in there because it's nice and easy for me to take what I want to do or what inks I want to use. So I'll show you in subsequent videos how I use the other sizes of the stash boxes. So the same post edge expressions BetterPress plates, which I hot foiled earlier. Now I'm going to use some BetterPress inks and do some letterpressing using the letterpress system from Spellbinders. Again, very easy to do. All you need to do is just place the BetterPress plate onto the magnetic platform, which is called the chase, apply the ink, and then you place the clear top with the registration marks, which is called the platen, and it's also got the cotton card already adhered to it. Put it over it, let it click into place, and put it through your Platinum 6 machine, and you will get a really lovely image that's been impressed into the cotton card. Here I'm applying colors that are bluish, green, and teal that's come from various Spellbinders BetterPress inks. The BetterPress inks comes in sets of 4, and they all come in quite a small size ink pads, as you see. So you need to get the refills when you get them, because they do go out of ink quite easily because they're so small. So you want to make sure you always get the refills when you buy these BetterPress inks. And then you look at the beautiful image here, nice and crisp, and it looks very pretty with the gradation of colors. Now I'm going to use the post edge frame, and I'm going to use the gray, which is the thunder. I'm going to use that. It takes a little while to apply the ink because it's quite light color, and I wanted to have a double layer. So sometimes you can put it back twice, or you can just make sure you put the ink on quite thickly onto the BetterPress plate, and you go through it the same way. And then I see the image here. So the card here is already a card size. That cotton card is already in A2 size, so easy to put it onto an A2 card, or maybe a slightly bigger card if you want to have a bit of a border. Now I'm doing it slightly differently. I'm using the same colors, but this time I'm using a variation of colors onto the frame, the post edge frame here, just trying to blend the colors a bit. The same four colors, which is Coastal, Cosmic Sky, Pine, and Spruce. So they come from a few different ink sets. I've put them together, wiping all the excess from the magnetic platform so that it doesn't transfer onto the cotton card. And there you go. You see that multicolored frame. Now for the inner part, this image here, the postage writing, I'm going to just use a black. So I'm using the BetterPress black ink, so it's nice and stark against that slightly blended background. I just wanted that contrast just to show you the two different color combos you can use and get quite different looks. Again, this BetterPress plates are what I used to do hot foiling just now, and now I've done it with the BetterPress inks. So you get to see different looks of what you get from the same BetterPress plates. Now these BetterPress inks, you do need a specific cleaner, and I use the Ranger's Archival Ink Cleaner to clean it. Now they might stain, so these BetterPress plates might have the ink stain on them, but it doesn't matter. Even if they do stain, they will perform the functions. The functionality of the BetterPress plate will not go away just because it's slightly stained. You can still use it to continue doing hot foiling and letterpressing. I'm just using my guillotine to cut the cards or the cotton cards that I've impressed the image on slightly smaller, just to fit onto the A2 card with a little bit of a border. So here I'm going to do some blending as well, but I'm using a stencil to make sure. You can use a stencil, you can use scrap paper, you can even use masking tape, you can use a lot of things just to do a little bit of ink blending with a yellow just at the corners, a couple of corners of this image here. But I don't want to mess up that post-it edge because that's nice and already inked. So I'm going to just put a color here in the middle, not the whole thing, but a little bit of a stronger yellow at the edge. I'm not sure whether it goes, but I just wanted to give it a little bit of a color here so it kind of contrasts with the border. And I'm going to use the clear stamp of the month, where I've already stamped, and I've also die cut and done some layering with the coordinating die of that particular sentiment, and that's going to go onto the card right in the middle with the aid of a T-ruler to make sure it's nice and straight. As I'm looking at the card now, I'm thinking I could have been a little bit light-handed with the yellow. Maybe the yellow is a little bit stronger than I wanted, but I decided to let it go. I could have maybe sprayed a bit of water or moistened a little bit of a wet towel or something and just taken out a little bit of the yellow. But I decided not to mess it up and just leave it as is. Let me know what you think of this card. Here is another one, the other image that I letterpressed, but here I'm using the same flowers that I used earlier from the large die of the month from April 2025, and I've done 3 little bunches here with different colored flowers because I thought with the light background it could handle the additional colors. My thinking anyway. I'd like to hear what you think. And again, I've got this sentiment that I've already stamped and die cut and layered from the clear stamp of the month, and all I have to do is just put it onto there. And I wanted to keep all of the sentiment, the image, everything in the corner because I wanted that background to come through as well. So you got a little bit of a colorful corner there with that background left there. I think it looks really pretty. This card, I really like how it turned out. And here are all the cards that I created with the BetterPress of the month from April 2025, which is Post Edge Expressions, and I've got them hot foiled as well as letterpressed. And a hot foil, remember, you get 2 for 1 because you get the positive image as well as the negative image. And then I've got the letterpressed versions where I've got the sentiments from the clear stamp of the month. I do prefer to hot foil my sentiments from the BetterPress set because I just like how they turn out. And here's the Glimmer of the month, scattered letters. So it's got a nice background with a couple of sentiments and a coordinating die. I do love my coordinating dies for the sentiments. And it does come with also a tube of black hot foil, which I used earlier for my hot foiling the background or the image of the BetterPress plates. But I'm also going to use the black hot foil for this scattered letters background, which is the Glimmer of the month hot foil plate. Same principles as earlier when you do hot foiling, and I do always like to hot foil with a hammermill card because it's nice and smooth and it's got a nice weight. So if you can't get your hands on a hammermill card, which I've got the link below, you can get any colored card or any color card really, whether it's white or a colored card. Just make sure it's nice and smooth so it can grab onto all that hot foil, and it's also a good weight. So same principles, you got the dull side of the hot foil facing the card and the pretty side of the glimmer plate facing the pretty side of the hot foil. And all you have to do is get your glimmer machine ready and put it through the glimmer machine. Same as earlier, you just make sure that you've got the light on, and then once the light comes on, you press it and you wait for about 60 seconds while that light is flickering, and when it's done, you put it through the Platinum 6 machine and you will come out back with some amazing solid hot foil image of the scattered letters. As I've grown confidence using the hot foiling machine or the glimmer machine to do hot foiling, I know that I'm going to get solid images. I don't really bother with the hinge, though I do use the hinge method by putting the tape at the top, and I know I'm going to get a really good image. Now this solid plate here, you can see an image there of the deluxe deck there because I used the foil the wrong way. It should be facing, the pretty side facing the plate, but I put the dull side and therefore the image was on that hot foil plate. But it doesn't matter because you can still use it. The functionality of that solid hot foil plate still works. So I'm going to get the negative image of those scattered letters with the black hot foil now. So I will be putting that through the Platinum 6 machine, as you can see, and then I'm going to get a solid image. All of that hot foil is transferred on the card as evidenced by that clear plastic, and you can see the negative image and positive image. So you get a 2-for-1. I like that. And here I've hot foiled the sentiments as well, and I'm die cutting them together. I'll die cut a few layers because you know I like to layer my sentiments, and I've done it in various colors here. I've got gold polished brass, and I've also used some satin pewter. Yes, this satin pewter here, there was a bit of overfoiling, so I just need to remove the overfoiling with an eraser, but that means I will not be doing the negative image. That's all it means. Now this month's bonus item that comes with the deluxe caboodle is the layered scattered letters. So it's essentially layered stencils that you can use to color the scattered letters that have been hot foiled. I'm using the sticky mat in the stamping platform to hold the card that I'm going to be stenciling or coloring with my stencils, and I put the stencil over top, securing the stencil with a couple of pieces of tape. And I'm using my small blending brush from Altenew, and I'm even using the Altenew Colors crisp dye inks to do some coloring. These crisp dye inks do lighten as they dry, so sometimes they need to a couple of layers. But if you think they're too light after you've taken the stencil off, you can always put the stencil back and give it another layer, or put the stencil back and give it a little bit of shading with a darker shade. And I do that with some of my coloring here. I love the fact that these stencils make it so easy to do the coloring. Not much thinking. All you need to do is pick up the colors that you want to do and go with it. You can even put another stencil on top of this to give it a bit of a layering of a polka dot or some heart shapes. I could have done that, but I didn't do that, so I just went with that simple layering of the stencils to do what I would call, these are more like coloring stencils, because you're essentially using these stencils to do some coloring of the image that you've already hot foiled. But I also show you later on in the video how I use the stencils, just the stencils on its own with no hot foiling, because you can just use it in the stencils as like to create some abstract shapes, colored shapes, and go with that. So that's another way to use the stencils as well. So this is a pretty easy, straightforward coloring stencil, and look how pretty the colors are. I just like the way that background turned out. Now I want to go in and put a little bit of shading with the caramel toffee, which is a slightly darker color, because once it's dry I thought it looked a bit pale, so I've just added some additional colors, and here I'm going in with some warm sunshine to give that mango smoothie, that original color there, a little bit of shading. Now they will dry a little bit lighter, and I do use a smaller mini blending brush to give that shading, because sometimes you just need a little bit of focus if the color is a bit light. And here I'm using the small blending brush, which is a broader surface because the color is quite dark, and I just wanted to make sure that it doesn't get too pronounced, the dark color. I wanted it to blend with that background a little bit. As you do the blending, you will see it's just, I don't want it to be too stark, but just a slight blend. I do like the way this turned out. You've got a little bit of a blend of the darker version at the bottom of the envelopes, and then I'm going to use the layering or the precision layering A2A die set to cut it into that A2 size that I'll put onto an A2 card. So I do like my precision layering A2 size. I've got A set and B set, and you get many layerings of that. And here's a different color combination that I've used. I do like how these cards have turned out. I've already put them onto a base card of an A2 base card, and I've got these sentiments here that I've hot foiled earlier, and I'm just going to put them on. You don't have to do much because the card, the background is already so pretty. You just need that sentiment and you're done. So open me for a smile, and the other card will get the other sentiment, which will read, mailing you a big hello. Now you can put some die cuts of envelopes from the small die of the month if you want, but I decided not to do any of that and just leave the cards as is. Now for the third card with these layering stencils, I just did the stenciling just to get some abstract images. I didn't do any hot foiling, and I do like how that turned out. And I decided to die cut some flowers from the large die of the month. Again, you saw me use that earlier, and I used similar colors to the background. I didn't want to introduce new colors, but in hindsight, maybe I should have used white tulips so that they've stood out a little bit more. I don't know. Let me know what you think. I just thought if I go with these similar colors, it doesn't add too many colors to it. And I just got the third bunch of tulips, just a little bit dimension with some pop squares there, foam squares to pop it up a little bit, just cut the stems a little bit, and then I'm going to put the sentiment that reads, a friendly reminder that someone is thinking of you, which I've already hot foiled die cut, and I've got some layering. I think I've got 2 or 3 layers of that sentiment die cut there to give it a little bit of dimension. T-ruler to make sure it's nice and straight. Let me know what you think about using the stencil this way, just to give it some abstract colored background. I like those abstract shapes. Maybe I could have done it with a brighter color, but I decided to go with some jewel tone colors here just to see how it goes. I do like using sentiments that are hot foiled. I just think they look a lot better. So a lot of my sentiments that I will use in my Glimmer and BetterPress plates backgrounds will always be hot foiled. Now for some of the other, before I put together the cards of the, what I would call the negative images of the scattered letters, the Glimmer scattered letters, I'm going to put some wax seal. So here I'm doing some melting some pastel pink wax beads just to use the wax seal of the month. You will see me show you the wax seal of the month from April 2025, which is really pretty flowers in a postage edge form. So it's a rectangle, and you will just place it. And I don't use the handle, so you don't use the handle also fine. And look how pretty those flowers are. You just leave it to dry for probably 20 to 30 seconds, and it solidifies. And here's a different color I'm using. So this is a cloudy sky wax beads. I'm going to be putting it onto my silicone mat, just pressing it and leaving it there. And I'm using the flame to get rid of all the bubbles that will form when you pour the melted wax beads onto the silicone mat. Now you can use the scissors and cut out that rectangle, or you can leave it as is. I wanted to have that quite organic and rustic look, so I've just left it as is. This is a pearl white wax beads that I've melted, and I'm just going to press it and leave it. So these are the colors I've used, and I do like making sure all the bubbles are got rid of before the wax settles. So while it's still wet, you get rid of the bubbles. There you go, you got 3 images, all so pretty. The great thing about using these non-stick wax seal spoons is there's no wastage. So all the leftover hardened wax seal there, or wax beads, melted wax beads that have hardened, I'm just going to put it back into my storage container, and I'll use it again the next time I want to use that color, because I'm not going to wipe it off. It's just solidified, and I can put it away. Now there are many ways that I can color this wax seal, but I'm going to show you how I use my markers to do it. Now I'm assembling my first card here. I'm using some diamante black thread here to just wrap around the card before I put some backing onto the card panel and then attach it to the card base. So here I'm just going to put some sellotape to just keep that thread behind, and then I'll put some foam sheet to give it a bit of dimension at the back before I adhere it to the card base. Now this is the cloudy sky wax beads that I use to melt. I melted the wax bead and got that impression just now, but I'm using my marker, my Sharpie marker, to just put a little bit of black outline on those flowers that are already there, just to make it stand out a little bit more. I didn't want to do too much with it because I just wanted that blue to blend into that background with that blue envelopes in the background, and just keep it really simple because there's not much to do when you've got such a pretty background. And I've got that sentiment here that has been hot foiled in black hot foil, a note just for you. And that sentiment is from the BetterPress plate of the month. And here is the silver, or the silver negative image of that scattered letters. I've done a little bit of die cutting the image using my precision layering set, and I've got the middle slightly raised back with some foam sheet, and I've got the pink wax beads, the pastel pink wax beads there, and I've got this sentiment here from the Glimmer of the month, Open Me for a Smile. I'm going to use the Deco Color silver metallic pens here to color the flowers, and then the middle or the center of the flowers I'm going to just put a little black dot with my Sharpie marker. Very simple coloring. You could color it in different ways, but I decided to use my markers here, my metallic markers and my Sharpie markers to do the coloring. And for the final negative image here, you've got the black hot foil, and again here I'm going to use the pearl white image or the wax seal that I did earlier. Nothing too much. I've got some thread that I've gone around the base of the card there before I attached it to the card base, and I've got the sentiment mailing you a big hello, which I've hot foiled earlier and die cut and layered, and I've attached it with some foam strips behind. Now here I'm going to use my black Sharpie to color the flowers so that it kind of matches the background a little bit. You'll see it later on. This card, I'm going to put the sentiment, but I'm also going to add some flowers. I do love these little tulip flowers that comes with the large die of the month, and I've used it for quite a few of my compositions. If you see, you can see all the cards I've created at the end of the video when I show you all the cards, and you'll see these tiny tulips feature quite a bit because I really think they're pretty, and I like the way they're quite colorful against the quite dark background. Do let me know what you think of these cards. And here are all the cards that I've created with the scattered letters, Glimmer hot foil, as well as the wax seal of the month. And I've got the sentiments from the Glimmer hot foil as well as the BetterPress plate of the month. And you can see the die cuts are largely from the large die of the month because I do adore those tulip bunches. I would love to hear what you think of the color combinations and how I use the bonus item that you get when you get the deluxe caboodle, that coloring stencil as I call it. It comes in really handy when you want to get a nice beautiful background. But keeping in mind, if you don't have the coloring stencil, you could just do some ink blending of that Glimmer hot foil background as well. So that will look just as pretty. Maybe I should have done an example of that. Next time I will remember to do that as well, because that could look just as pretty if you just do some ink blending. Now I'm going to show you how I use the stitching die of the month, Stitched Taking Notes. It's a very simple stitching die. Any beginner could do this as well. So I'm showing you how I've done some die cutting, and it does come with 5 small sentiments, and I have bunched up the sentiments to use together. So you've got a note for you, hello friend, and then you got thanks on its own. So I do 3 cards and I show you how I use all these sentiments, and then you've got thanks that I've done separately as well. And I'll show you how I've die cut the sentiment just to get the sentiment and also a bit of a background so that you can just put that sentiment as I'm doing now. So you can see attaching it to that background, so you can see those letters that form the word come through more clearly. So for example, you can see the thanks come through quite clearly there, or that for you was it. So I can go ahead and do this, and you can layer it quite a bit so you can give it additional dimension. But I think I do use foam strips to give it that additional dimension when I put the cards together. So this is all you have with the stitching die of the month. So relatively simple stitching die of the month. And I'm going to do some ink blending here before I do any stitching. So you know how some note cards or notepads, they do have an image at the background which is got some a solid image which is a slightly darker color from the color of that notepad page. And that's what I'm looking to achieve here. So I'm using the stencil of the month from February 2025, and I'm going to be just using all the layered stencils. I'm going to be using the same color, which is the Tattered Rose Distress ink. The aim here is to get an image that is going to have a bit of a silhouette of a flower garden in the back of that notepad page, which I've seen. I love those notepads. And then I will let it dry before I will do the stitching. So there you go. So I'm going to let this dry for a little while, and you can see those etched lines on that die cut. That'll tell you exactly where to stitch. And I'm using my DMC thread here. I'm using 4 strands to do this. So I just need to put it through and just secure the edge or the start of that thread there with some sticky tape, and then I just follow the edge lines. Now I do use the tapestry needle size 24 when I'm doing this. The whole of this stitch die is quite big enough to deal with even a 22 if you want to use a size 22. And then I just, when the thread ends, I just secure it with some sticky tape and then continue on. So it's relatively easy to do. So once I've finished all what I call the horizontal lines, when I do the vertical line on the left side of that page, I'm going to make sure I weave it between those horizontal lines because I don't want it to be all straight so it's easy for it to snag. I secure the thread behind where the horizontal stitching starts, and then I'm going to put the thread one in, one out on the horizontal lines. This way it is secure and it's not going to stick out on the top of those horizontal stitches. So you got a vertical stitch going through between all the horizontal stitches right until it reaches the other stitch die hole at the bottom of the die cut. Just make sure it doesn't get stuck at the top there as mine has, and you'll be fine. So there is an edged line that goes vertically all the way down, and that's what you're following to get to the stitching hole there. And then you're just going to pull it through, make sure the thread is nice and taut, secure it behind the die cut with another sticky tape. Relatively simple. I did tell you that this month's stitching die of the month is very easy to do, and I would say if you're going to start with any stitching dies, this is a good and nice and easy one to do. There you go, it's done, pretty much done. Before I finish off, I'm going to stamp the sentiment from the clear stamp of the month, and it's going to say this card traveled all this way to say, and I'm going to put the die cut thanks there. Now generally I wouldn't use this sentiment because the travel is spelled the American way rather than the UK spelling of a double L, but I wanted that sentiment because I wanted to use the sentiment thanks at the bottom there just below that stamped sentiment, and there you go, it's pretty much done. I'm going to attach some foam sheet behind it because I wanted some dimension, and I'm going to attach it at an angle on this card. Now this is an A7 card which is 5 by 7 inches, but I have cut it slightly shorter, so it's 5 inches by 6¾ or 6½ inches. This card slightly shorter so that I can place this stitch die cut onto it. For the next card, I've done the die cutting, and it's a white card, so I'm going to do some ink blending here, and I'm using 3 different colors, 3 different distress ink colors. You've got the Villainous Potion, you've got Mermaid Lagoon, and Salvage Patina, and I'm doing my ink blending using foam pads because it does do the ink blending quite well. Just make sure your ink pads are nice and juicy. That's why you always make sure you get your refill inks when you buy an ink pad, so you can get the best of your ink pad, especially when you do blending or indeed even stamping. So that's the blending done, and I'm going to use a dark blue thread and did some stitching there. And these large tulips, I'm just going to put in that corner of that left hand bottom corner of that notepad page, and these come from the small die of the month, and I've just used the colors that complement the background, at least the colors that I think complement the background, the greens and the lilacs that hopefully complement that villainous portion. And this sentiment die cut and attach some foam strips behind it. It's a note for you. So I think it goes really well. And I kept it really simple. I did think whether I was going to do some splatters. I did want to do splatters, but I forgot about it. I was going to just splatter some water on it because these distress inks react so well with water, but I forgot about it. But there you go. It's still pretty. I do like the outcome of this card. I think it looks really gorgeous. And the final card that I do with a notepad here, I just left it white, and I did with some metallic red thread. I kept the lines nice and clean, and I've got again these tulips. I've got 3 different shades of yellow tulips. They all look quite similar, but they're slightly different shades of yellow tulips. And I've got Hello Friend, the sentiment there in red to kind of go with the thread. And here are the 3 cards that I created with the stitching die of the month, and you saw me create all of them. I just wanted to do a slightly different look for all of them, one with a silhouette image at the back, one just ink blending, and one just plain white. I hope you like how these cards turned out. Thank you so much for sticking with me this long video and bearing with me for such late publishing of my Spellbinders Clubkits of April 2025, and I do appreciate the outpouring of condolences and sympathy messages that have come through. I'm not able to answer every single message, but I do want to convey my thanks for your well wishes. And I'm going to get on with my next Spellbinders Clubkits, and I hope you look forward to seeing them, as I'm quite keen to put them out as soon as possible. All of the products I've used are listed in the description below, so do check it out. I would love to hear your messages on what you think of my creations. Always happy to get feedback. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope you enjoy creating when you receive your club kits and you're inspired by all of my creations. Happy crafting, and I'll catch you at my next video, hopefully not too long to wait for you to check out my Spellbinders Club Kits of May 2025. Take care and have fun.